days, you will tune into the Fox News channel. The fate of your government rests in your hands. So much at stake. Your paycheck, your taxes, your retirement, your 401k, your economy, immigration, border wall, originalist federal justices, due process, presumption of innocence, peace through strength, and so much more. I argue tonight that we are at a crossroads and this country will either get better or worse. In 1 week, you have the power, not the pundits, not the fake news networks, not the pollsters. You get to decide and shock the world. Coming up, we'll profile all the biggest races all across the country. We'll explain the 3 possible election outcomes. And also tonight, President Trump just wrapped up a very solemn trip to Pittsburgh where he, the First Lady, Melania, met with the victims and mourned this weekend's horrific attack. Vile, evil, deranged monsters like this man responsible for Saturday's anti-Semitic massacre will never define us as a country, even though there are people that try to politicize such tragedies. Unbelievable. We'll respond to all of that hateful coverage that you've been watching. Not here, of course. All right, so sit tight, buckle up. We have a busy show. Time for our breaking news opening monologue. All right, 1 week from tonight, you tune into the Fox News channel. The election results at this hour will be pouring in. The balance of power in Capitol Hill will be decided. You will definitely see one of 3 results. In the best case scenario, Republicans pick up seats in the Senate. That helps with confirmations of Supreme Court justices and hold on to a small majority in the House of Representatives. The second scenario could happen. Split decision. This is what most analysts are predicting. And the GOP would hold on to power in the Senate, pick up seats, but lose the House. And yes, Nancy Pelosi would be the next Speaker of the House. Third, worst case scenario involves Republicans losing both the House and Senate, meaning you get Speaker Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Schumer. Oh, I'd like to say it's unlikely. That would pretty much be an unmitigated disaster and a really bad night. We've had them before, kind of like when Obama won twice, but you can prevent that. Now, thankfully, the Senate is looking pretty strong tonight for the Republicans. We look at North Dakota. Democrat incumbent Heidi Heitkamp is now down by double digits against Republican Kevin Cramer. In Nevada, GOP Senator Dean Heller, he is maintaining a consistent, but it's always a tough state, lead against his opponent. Then we have incumbent Indiana Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly now down to Republican Mike Braun. It's a little complicated in Indiana because there's a libertarian on the ticket. And that would split and siphon away votes mostly from the Republican Braun and help Donnelly. So a libertarian vote pretty much is the vote for Chuck Schumer and Donnelly. And meanwhile, in Florida, razor thin, close as it can be. Well, Rick Scott, one of the most effective governors in the history of the state, bringing in over 2 million jobs in his term. And he's in a very close race against Democratic do-nothing Senator Schumer wannabe incumbent Bill Nelson. And let's not forget about this all-important race in Arizona. You have American hero, Republican Martha McSally, a vet, 28 years, 6 tours of duty, Iraq and Afghanistan. Her opponent, Kristen Sinema, is a radical disgrace for decades, even trashing the people of Arizona, calling them crazy, comparing the state to a meth lab of democracy. And she said Arizona is famous in a Lindsay Lohan kind of way. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. 2003, not long after the 2001 Trade Center attacks, she even suggested it was okay if Americans go fight for the Taliban, our enemies. She also promoted events at Arizona State University featuring a radical far-left lawyer, the one who represented, radical blind sheikh. And then, by the way, Sinema organized an anti-war rally with self-described witches. As Martha McSally said, while she was fighting for her country, she was running anti-war protests and wearing a pink tutu. And yesterday, Project Veritas unleashed an undercover video showing how Sinema and her campaign are caught on tape, openly admitting just how far left she is. Now, but she's hiding it from the people of Arizona. It's amazing how consistent the Democrats are. Don't tell them what we really think. We can't win on who we really are. Take a look.
I mean, I think you have to look, and this is why Kirsten's approach is so, I think, important. We can't be talking about an assault weapons ban.
No.
We can't, right?
But there's a lot of very conservative people in Arizona, and so she can't alienate
the conservative or moderate conservative voters by being super she is pro-choice. She's very liberal. She's progressive.
Right.
But she doesn't, in this election, want to draw too much attention to being progressive because she's trying to be more. That's why I think she took so much Democratic help, too. Otherwise, she wouldn't have won, also.
She had to play centrist to move up, to become powerful.
I believe that we should offer citizenship to every person who's in this country who isn't bad. Like, if you haven't committed a bad crime, then you should have citizenship. That's what I believe.
Now, Sinema is the latest Democrat caught on tape by ProjectVeritas.com. Arizona, do you really want to put someone that thinks it's okay to fight with the Taliban, that radical, in the U.S. Senate? Now, the campaigns of, let's see, Democrats Claire McCaskill, Phil Bredesen, Heidi Heitkamp, they all, too, were exposed on camera, proving our point. If you want to win and you're a Democrat, you cannot reveal who you really are or what you really believe in. You've got to lie to your constituents. That is pathetic. Senator McCaskill, members of her staff revealing their far-left plans strip gun rights from law-abiding American citizens in Missouri. By the way, always voting with Obama, not voting very often with Trump at all. McCaskill should be defeated in a state that is Trump territory. In Tennessee, Phil Bredesen's, his staff admitting that he would never support actually Kavanaugh's nomination if elected, and that people in his own state are kind of ignorant despite promising otherwise. Caught in a lie, lying to the people of Tennessee. Marsha Blackburn, she's up in the latest polls there. If Republicans have a really, really good night, if you want to be optimistic, why not, right? Democratic incumbents, Manchin is now down 2 in West Virginia. This is a real race. Tester in Montana is within the margin of error, only up 3. He can be defeated. Corrupt New Jersey Democrat Bob Menendez now at risk of losing that race, now within the margin of error. Nobody saw that coming. And meanwhile, the balance of power in the House is very much up for grabs at this hour. Real Clear Politics putting 204 House races in the Democratic column, 199 in the Republican column. 32 toss-ups will decide the majority. To make it simple, we're putting it up on the screen. We have all of this on Hannity.com detailing, the balance of power. These races will tip that balance. And by the way, there could be as few as a 4-point win either side. All these races you're looking at are neck and neck. And tonight also, we're tracking one gubernatorial race very closely. That's Republican Ron DeSantis of Florida in a very tight race against radical Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, far left, corrupt socialist, calling for a 40% tax hike for businesses in Florida. That'll destroy the economy of Florida. Gillum is actually facing an ongoing federal investigation into serious corruption and accepting apparent bribes valued at thousands of dollars from undercover agents, including tickets to the hit Broadway play Hamilton and a luxury vacation. Florida, you better wake up. You cannot let that man be your governor, or you'll see your economy tank. Early voting has now started all over America. If your state has early voting, you want to go vote, get it done. Ask yourself this question tonight. Are you better off than you were 2 years ago? Is the economy better off? Have burdensome regulations on businesses been cut dramatically more than at any other time in our generation? Are we now finally on a real path to becoming energy independent, the lifeblood of our economy? Do we now have better trade deals? Oh, and his little rocket man talking about denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Is he stopped shooting rockets over Japan? Is our relationship with Israel better? Do we pull out of that disastrous Iranian deal? Are we having better relations in terms of a new coalition? Israel, the U.S., Jordan, Egypt, the Saudis to stand up against Iranian hegemony. Did we get two originalists as promised on the U.S. Supreme Court? Do you care about due process, the Constitution, presumption of innocence? Or are you worried about protecting your borders tonight? Do you support the president's new plan to end birthright citizenship for those who came to this country illegally? Do you want a wall on our southern border? Well, 1 week from tonight, 1 week from today, all of it's on the ballot. Get to the polls and vote, or else you get the government you will deserve. We'll wake up on November 7th, and you'll hear Speaker Pelosi, or soon-to-be Speaker Pelosi, Speaker-elect Pelosi, Senate Majority-elect Chuck Schumer. Let's see, Maxine Waters, Adam Shifty Schiff, Gerald Nadler, Elijah Cummings, they'll all be committee chairmen. and women. That's not going to be good. The Democratic agenda will become reality. What do they want? Open borders. They want to keep Obamacare. Really? How'd that work out for you? They want their crumbs back. They want higher taxes. They want activist justices on the court. They will open endless investigations into the president. They'll block any investigation into the deep state. Mark my words, America gets the government they deserve. But polls are often wrong. So on the one hand tonight, we're going to go over poll numbers. But on the other hand, well, they were wrong. If you look at the exit polls in 2004 and 2016, John Kerry was supposed to be president, and so was Hillary Clinton. They often get the polls wrong. By the way, Hillary, she still hasn't quite recovered. She's still forcing her way into the public stage. It's not really a pretty picture, including recently when she made this offensive joke. Take a look.
I don't want to paint with a broad brush. Every immigrant is this, every African American is that, every, other person with, different religious beliefs or whatever. That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's? And you didn't comment on him, and you feel free.
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done.
Now, the mainstream media all but ignored those remarks. I just wonder, how would they have reacted if Donald Trump said it? As you can hear, the audience laughed, cheered, moderator grinned ear to ear. But what if a Republican made that same comment? We all know the outrage, or feigned, I guess it would be, moral outrage and selective moral outrage of fake news CNN and conspiracy TV MSNBC and elsewhere would be nonstop. All conservatives painted as racist. Today, President Trump, he visited the site where an actual racist, vile, anti-Semitic monster attacked a synagogue, killing 11, injuring 6 others. The president, the First Lady Melania, met with the victims, mourned this horrible attack. And sadly, even as we speak, the mainstream media, those on the left, are still going to great lengths, lying to paint a false narrative picture of the president, of Fox News, talk radio, and even many of you, the American people, racist, condoning and inciting such reprehensible violence. Night after night, day after day, minute after minute, they paint all conservatives, most Republicans, as cancerous hate mongers. Let's take an example. GQ writer Julia Yaffe yesterday on fake news CNN Jake Tapper's show. She actually said that Trump is worse than ISIS. And we're getting lectured by CNN, lecturing the president on civility. This is a joke. Take a look.
I think, this president, one of the things that he really launched his presidential run on is talking about Islamic radicalization. And this president has radicalized so many more people than ISIS ever did. I think the president has far more supporters who espouse an equally hateful ideology.
After not pushing back at all, Jake Tapper later gave Yaffe an opportunity to explain the remarks. She partially apologized, then continued to just bash President Trump in one breath. And of course, well, she wasn't banned from fake news CNN or MSNBC. Instead, they just continue to feature her as the great guest over and over again. All week, she's been spewing absurd anti-Trump hatred, and the mainstream media apparently loving it. But they lecture us on civility. Take a look.
This tale of kind of anti-Semitic comments, anti-Semitic tropes seem to follow him everywhere. There might be fire where that, anti-Semitic smoke is.
You say that Trump sets the tone. He's allowed bigots to go about their business.
Absolutely. The ways in which he condemns racists, where you can see it's so half-hearted. It's like a kid being forced to do something by his parents. It's interesting you mention World War II, because when Donald Trump said that he was a nationalist, he didn't just off the cuff say he was a nationalist. At that point, I think the kind of the racism and anti-Semitism that he had been winking at and these dog whistles, I think, became a vuvuzela.
And of course, the media lecturing the president on civility and tone, and talk radio on civility and tone, and lecturing Fox News. They wonder why people chant that they suck constantly, regularly. There's no introspection, no internal conversation that maybe they've earned it. And the president calls them fake news, and they bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer in water. And with just 1 week to go until Election Day, Yaffe, others, mainstream media, speaking literally now in one hysterical voice of the Democratic Party. desperate to win in 7 days. Newsbusters study in the lead up for the midterms. Mainstream media's coverage of President Trump Republicans has been 10 times more negative than the coverage of all Democratic candidates combined. And of course, we see it every 2 and 4 years. Racist, sexist, you've heard my list. But this time it's even worse. Now the mainstream media literally trying to link President Trump, Fox News, talk radio, everyone they disagree with and hate anyway, with vile atrocities, with an anti-Semitic attack that took place in Pittsburgh. I'm not making it up. We've got the tape.
The terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them.
Yeah, if you guys stop saying mean things about me, I'll stop inciting angry lunatics to kill you. Deal?
Whether the president knew what he was saying, the alleged gunman certainly heard something that resonated.
What Trump is doing is stoking and inciting for the purposes of political power the worst amongst us to take action in his name. Anybody who sits there and says that there is not causality between these events and the incitements is as dishonest as they are blind.
I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to draw the lines between these people and the rhetoric that is being parroted by the president of the United States right now.
The racists and the anti-Semites think that he's perfectly tolerant of racial violence and anti-Semitic violence.
Yeah, the president, the most pro-Israel president in our lifetime. Ask the prime minister of Israel. Ask Ron Dermer. They're pointing it out. And to blame individuals like this is beyond hateful. We'll get to that later. Also, we have anti-Trump hatred. It's become so unhinged, even the rabbi from the synagogue that was attacked, he's getting hate mail. Why? Because he's meeting the president who's going to mourn the lives of innocent people killed. Take a look.
When I first said that the president was welcome, I've received a lot of email, too numerous to count. I can't keep track. For every email I read, 2 appear as I'm reading that one. So I just cannot keep up with it. I've received many emails that are not happy with those words. The thing that saddens me is those emails also contain hate. And it just continues in this vicious cycle. Hate, promulgating more hate, promulgating more hate. And that's just not the solution. We need to be better than this.
Pretty despicable. We do need to be better than this. The violence has got to stop. The threats, the intimidation have no place in this country. Sadly, many on the left, political differences now just demonize somebody you disagree with. To them, Republicans are evil. The president is evil. Fox News talk radio is evil. It's why you see this kind of rhetoric over the top from liberals like, actor James Cromwell saying this week that there will be, quote, blood in the streets if Democrats don't take back power and destroy the president's agenda. Tried to walk it back. Good luck with that. This kind of rhetoric is not only surprising, it's regular. The left is using the politics of fear, division for decades. I tell you, every election season, every 2 years, every 4 years, this is what they do. This is their playbook. So will you stand against the vilification of political differences? Are you going to buy into this hysteria, these vile, vicious, untrue attacks? Are you going to let Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer control the fate of your government? Is there anything the Democrats are offering to you, the American people, to help this country become a better place, to help its citizens, the forgotten men and women? The same party of Obama's record failures. What about appealing for impeachment for no reason? Endless bickering, obstruction. That's all they're offering. Health care? How did that promise keep your doctor, keep your plan, and pay less work out for America? It was horrible. Most people have one provider. That's it. No choices, losing doctors, losing plans. You think open borders is smart? Really? We're not a country that has sovereign borders, the rule of law? They want to eliminate ICE. They want more sanctuary cities and states and free health care, whether you're a citizen or not. They want to take back your crumbs and say so. Really? They want to pick your pocket of every dime you have. They want liberal activists, judges on the court. In other words, they want to bring back the failed policies of Obama's. Is that what you want? Are you better off than you were 2 years ago today? Is America better off? Is the economy better off? Are we more secure as a country? That decision will be yours in 7 days. you can once again shock the world. Joining us now, RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, along with Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. I looked out in Florida. I'm shocked that a guy like Gillum, who wants to raise business taxes 40%, is under corruption investigations, has said awful things about law enforcement, wants to impeach the president, Medicare for all. I don't know who's going to pay for it. How is this even a close race? And the same with Bill Nelson. What is it? Is there any one thing anyone can say Nelson has done in the century that he's been there?
Yeah, I can. He's only passed 1% of the bills in the 45 years that he's been in political life, Sean. It's unreal. The man has basically done nothing. He's voted for higher taxes 300 times versus Rick Scott, a businessman, a career businessman who has turned our state around. We are in the black. He has created millions of jobs. He has lowered taxes. Our state is in the best shape it has been in because of Rick Scott. He is a businessman and he wants to serve in Senate. Then you take that down to the governor's race with Gillum, like you said. This guy signed the Dream Defenders Pledge. People go online and look at that pledge. Anti-guns, anti-law enforcement, anti-jails, anti-police, versus Ron DeSantis, who has dedicated his life to service. He's an Iraqi veteran. He served in the war for us. This guy, it's unreal. He believes in lower taxes. He cares about our state. People have got to get out and vote, Sean.
Let me guess.
This election is crucial.
Ronald, let me run through the states. Yes or no? Does Rick Scott and DeSantis win Florida? Polls show it's neck and neck.
I think they do win Florida. The president's going down to Florida tomorrow. He's going to go down a second time before Election Day. And Pam just laid out the differences between these candidates. I mean, Gillum is extreme. He will destroy the Florida economy.
I want to move on.
Go ahead.
Marsha Blackburn, does she beat the guy we caught lying on tape, Bredesen? Does she win?
Yes, I think Marsha Blackburn wins
Claire
Tennessee.
McCaskill, does, in that case, Hawley win?
We're seeing that race narrow. We need Missourians to go out and vote, but I think Josh Hawley wins that race.
And what about and does Dean Heller? How does Dean Heller do in Nevada?
Dean Heller's doing great right now in Nevada. We also have two potential pickups in the House.
What
and
about
the 3rd
Arizona?
And the 4th district.
Will Sinema, the radical, have any chance against McSally? Because those polls are dead even.
Yeah, Sinema is the greatest actress on the planet. She deserves an Oscar for her award-winning change. But I think McSally pulls that out. Listen, it's narrowing.
North Dakota,
it is neck and neck. Kramer will be the next senator from North Dakota.
And what about John Tester? Could he lose? It looks like it.
He can, and the president is the biggest aide in Montana. Every time he goes into that state, we see Rosendale go up.
And what about other states that we're looking at? Indiana, I hope people don't vote Libertarian.
Indiana, Bronze opened up a lead. West Virginia, Manchin's on the ropes. You look at New Jersey.
And what about New Jersey?
Yeah, New Jersey, I mean, listen, it is within the margin of error. Bob Menendez is a crook. Bob Hugin's a businessman. These are states that we can win.
Will Republicans hold the House?
I think we'll hold the House, but it's going to be tight. We got to get out and vote.
I would argue tonight we're down 5 seats. By my measure. Pam.
Got to vote. Everyone's got to get out there and vote. John James, Michigan. Bill Schuette, governor, Michigan.
Another great.
Gotta vote.
He's a star. John James has cut the lead down to 6 in Michigan. You're right. All right. Good to see you both. Appreciate it. When we come back, we have some surprising numbers coming out ahead of the midterms. We'll look at the polls. Doug Schoen, John McLaughlin. We'll look all across the Senate and the House of Representatives. You vote 1 week from today. So the midterm elections 1 week from today, and some races are down to the wire. As of today, Real Clear Politics map has Democrats up 5 in the House. That's how close it is. Joining us now to help explain where things stand, Fox News contributor, former Clinton pollster Doug Schoen, former Trump campaign pollster John McLaughlin. Doug, you were on with me. It's funny. That's what the polls show. So you got, 32, what we say, toss-ups in the country.
Right.
You told me just a couple of days ago, he said Democrats +5.
Yeah.
I'm actually tonight, if the election were held today, I think you're right. I think the Democrats would get the House because Republicans have to sweep those 32 races. My hope is that the Trump voters understand the severity of Nancy Pelosi being Speaker and that would overcome that deficit.
Yeah, and I think that's a hope, Sean, not the reality. I think the Democrats will win narrowly. I would say that I don't see the blue wave materializing that the Democrats hoped would show up, but there are enough vacancies, open seats, and frankly, Democratic
45
dollars.
retirements, and you got the headwind of history.
Right.
But if they pick up seats in the Senate, that's the split decision that most people are calling tonight, 1 week out, John McLaughlin. But pundits are wrong. They were wrong in 2014, 2016, 2004, just a few examples off the top of my head.
Right, they're wrong. They're wrong again. But you know what? Right now, I can't disagree with you or Doug right now because there are too many open seats, and the election really depends upon a turnout for the rest of this week and on Tuesday, because the early voting states, you can see the Republicans are doing better than they're doing about what they did in 16 in Florida, but not as well as they did in 14, because the Democrats in the anti-Trump vote are coming out a little bit better. So we really have to watch that. Plus, you can't let up on Election Day. Remember, everybody was saying a year ago when you had Virginia and Alabama, they were saying, gee, the Democrats won't come out, we'll get our vote out, it'll be a usual turnout. No, instead of 2.2 million in Virginia, you had 2.6 million, and there was 11% more Democrats. This year, the Republicans have to stay fired up right through Tuesday, and that's why the president's out there doing the rallies as he's doing.
Yeah,
and
he's
the
kind of
Republican
carrying a
Party
lot of
needs
these
to catch up
guys
with
on their back.
Yeah.
All right, so you would say tonight that Republicans are a little behind in the House, and there's got to be some urgency. We put up on my website, Hannity.com, those races that will tip the balance of power. But really, every race matters. There's always a couple of surprises somewhere. What about the Senate? How many? We'll start with you, John. How many Republicans do you think they pick up seats? If so, where and how many?
That's where the Republicans are putting their resources. They probably should put more back into the House. But they will pick up 3, 4, maybe 5 seats in the Senate, because in those states, being with Trump or without Trump really matters, because you have 26 out of the seats up for grabs are Democratic seats. 10 are in states that Trump won. So Heitkamp's in trouble. Manchin's in trouble in West Virginia. I think McCaskill's going to lose in Missouri. So you've got a trend where Democratic incumbents are in big trouble. Like you've been saying, in Indiana, if they vote for the Republican instead of the Libertarian, Donnelly's in trouble in Indiana. So the
Donnelly's
Republicans
down
are doing
now.
well.
All right, so what do you see in the Senate? You believe the Republicans hold the Senate as a Democrat?
Yeah, I do. I'm a little less bullish on the Republican chances than you and John. I think Arizona remains in play. Indiana's within the margin of error. I don't really believe that necessarily McCaskill goes down. But I have to say, all the trends are moving, to the extent there are trends, in the direction of the Republicans. The only contrary state now is Arizona. Nevada remains within the margin of error, but moving marginally in the direction of the Republicans.
Now, look, Florida to me is too close to call. I think we hold Tennessee. I do think Claire McCaskill loses. I think that Project Veritas tape has hurt her. Her lying about her RV trip hurt her. Her voting reliably Schumer hurt her. She's not a moderate. I think you're right about Nevada. We hold that. I think Kristen Sinema's in trouble because as more and more gets known about her. Heitkamp is going to leave. Testers, it's going to be a tight race in Montana. I think Donnelly, if they don't vote Libertarian, John's right, we win that. And then interestingly, even West Virginia's in play now. Even New Jersey might be in play. Or
I think the Democrats will hold New Jersey, hold Tester, and it won't be 3 or 4. I think it'll be a couple of seats. But clearly the Republicans are poised to hold the Senate as the Democrats win the House.
All right. But, John, you do say Republicans can come back.
Yes.
What is it going to take for them to make up that 5-seat, say, deficit if we're all right? Because we're all agreeing that a little behind tonight on the House.
You said the magic word, stop Pelosi. 55% of Americans don't like her. 30% are favorable to her. We've seen it where they don't want her as the speaker. Even Democrats don't want her as the speaker. So we got to draw that contrast between her.
By the way, Doug's not going to admit it. He doesn't want her.
No,
he's not going to admit it.
No Pelosi, no impeachment. Yes to the Democrats. Very clear.
All right. 1 week from tonight. Let's see how smart we are. All right. When we come back, more of the media's shameful, despicable, double standard. Democrats for years have been palling around with radical, racist, anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. You almost hear nothing about it. We've got the full report. That's next, straight ahead. In the wake of the synagogue Pittsburgh massacre, the media has been vilifying President Trump, saying his rhetoric is somehow connected to this horrific shooting. Now, the media is saying next to nothing about major Democrats, their connections to one of the biggest racist and anti-Semites in America, Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam. Here's what Farrakhan said about the Jewish people.
Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. The satanic Jews, they control everything and mostly everybody. There were many Israelis and Zionist Jews in key roles in the 9/11 attacks. See, the Jews have control over those agencies of government. The powerful Jews are my enemy.
Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled the cover off of that satanic Jew.
Call me an anti-Semite. Stop it. I'm anti-termite.
And we could spend all night on the racist side of him. Joining us now, author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz, and the CEO of the National Diversity Coalition for the President, Pastor Darrell Scott, is with us now. You know what bothers me? I've got pictures, Alan Dershowitz, of Bill Clinton, 2 months ago?
Right.
Sitting three seats down from this virulent racist and anti-Semite. Who I have gone after my whole career. 8 years after Obama, then the picture comes out of Farrakhan and Obama. You know, he hung out with a lot of other radicals in Chicago as well. Then we've got Keith Ellison. Nobody ever wants to talk about Keith Ellison, who associated with this guy. This is this guy's evil. And then they blame Trump, who I think is the most pro-Israeli president in our lifetime in a generation. The only one that had the guts to make Jerusalem the capital, a great relationship with the prime minister. We are truly friends and partners and best allies. And they accuse him of causing this horrible terrorist act in the synagogue?
Well, you know, I'd like to put what I call a testing hypothetical. When I was a professor, I always asked hypothetical questions. What if Bill Clinton, one of his people that he loved in the area of country and Western music, died, and Bill Clinton was invited to sit at his memorial service, and he walked in, and 3 seats away from him was David Duke. Is there anybody in the world who believes that Bill Clinton wouldn't have gotten up and left? But he didn't leave when he was seated 3 seats away from Farrakhan. What's the reason for that? Does he think that somehow Duke is worse than Farrakhan? Farrakhan has a much bigger following and is much more advocates the kind of violence that we saw. Is it that you have a different standard when you have a black bigot than when you have a white bigot? That won't wash. You know, I'm so disappointed in my friend Bill Clinton. I voted for him twice. I regard him as a friend, but I cannot imagine how he could sit next to one of the most evil anti-Semites in the world. The Black Caucus has welcomed Farrakhan. Other leaders of Congress have welcomed Farrakhan. It's an extraordinary double standard. There has to be one standard against anti-Semitism. You cannot tolerate it. You cannot normalize it. You cannot make it acceptable. And all of these actions implicitly make Farrakhan's anti-Semitism acceptable and normalized.
I can't say it any better than that, Pastor Scott.
Well, the thing that immediately comes to mind when you say that about Bill Clinton, and the thing that ashames me, is the fact that he was sitting in a Christian church. Farrakhan is not only notoriously anti-Semitic, he's also anti-Christian as well. So to have him sitting on the platform in a seat of honor in a Christian church, that was deplorable as well. But you know, black leaders and black pastors they embrace Farrakhan and they're afraid to offend him, simply because they think that because of his supposed pro-black bigoted message, that they need his approval, they need his endorsement in order for them to get elected or to have the power. They're afraid to make an enemy out of him. But the truth be told, Sean and Professor Dershowitz, truth be told, a number of them privately share his anti-Semitic feelings, and they buy into those anti-Semitic stereotypes that Farrakhan perpetuates.
Well, they have to be exposed. They have to be exposed.
Yeah, he perpetuates this victimization, and he identifies the Jews as the oppressor. And so he's doing this to the masses, and the leaders buy into it. And they even have a somewhat unspoken agreement that we'll keep this in private between us, but we really share these same ideas. And it's a shame. It's a shame that, that this man is allowed the latitude in America that he's allowed because he is who he is.
You know, it's easy for people on the right to condemn people on the left who are bigots, and it's easy for people on the left to condemn people on the right. What's hard and what needs to be done is people on the left condemning bigotry from the hard left and people on the right condemning bigotry on the hard right. It's the special obligation of people to condemn the extremists on their side of the political spectrum.
But even within your own ethnic group, blacks need to condemn bigotry by blacks. Whites need to condemn bigotry by whites, whoever. We need to do it within our own confines as well. We can't say we just condemn bigotry if it's against us. If it's by us, we have to condemn it as well.
Look, I have condemned bigotry among some Jews, extremist Jews, who have expressed anti-black or anti-Latino sentiments. It's the obligation of everybody to condemn this kind of bigotry, no matter what the source and no matter whether you agree with them on other issues.
I was raised Catholic. The corruption of the Catholic Church is beyond any comprehension. It is unacceptable. People should be going to jail for the horror that they committed, the crimes, the evil that they perpetrated, and the cover-up. Anybody involved similarly should be in jail.
But
you're right, Professor.
You have to praise the Catholic Church for its attack on anti-Semitism. That was maybe a little late in coming, but it has been so strong. Well, historically it was late, Professor, let's be honest. But it has been so strong that today, from pulpits all over the country, anti-Semitism is repeatedly condemned, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't think the relationship with Israel has been any closer as it is now.
Right.
And, you know, you see this emerging alliance against Iranian hegemony. We might actually have a chance of peace in the Middle East that nobody imagined a few years ago. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, 1 week from tonight, the election results will be pouring in. Senator Lindsey Graham, Mike DeWine, they're next as our coverage continues. Stay with us. All right, midterms just a week away. The fundamental rights that make this country great, all on the ballot. Due process, presumption of innocence, our Constitution, the economy, our safety, our security. Joining us tonight, champion of those rights, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine. He's running for the governorship of Ohio. Mike, this is an important race for this reason. People forget these governor's races. 2020, we get the census. Then you get all the realignment. Congressional seats begin to change, and they rewrite what the districts are. And usually the party in power has greater say.
Well, you know, Sean, it's amazing how much money has been poured into the state from the Democrat side. They really recognize the importance of the governorship in 2020. They get it. And so we've seen millions and millions of dollars come in from California and New York outside the state of Ohio.
Yeah. And, you know, Senator, this moment in the Kavanaugh hearings, I would argue was a tipping point in those hearings. That moment doesn't happen. I'm not sure Kavanaugh got through. And I said it to you then, I'll say it to you now. You did the right thing. It was clear. It was moral injustice and indignation. And you spoke for a lot of people. You now have been in a lot of states. You're traveling all through. I don't know who's busier. The president has 11 stops before Election Day. I think you probably have as many, if not more. He's not going to like it if you have more than him, by the way.
No, don't worry. But he's got a better plane. I can promise you that.
I'm sure. Let's talk about what is resonating with people on the stump. Sure. What are the issues resonating? I assume immigration, not wanting to give crumbs back. The Democrats' desire to impeach, open borders, yes, judicial nominees, the Kavanaugh effect?
All the Kavanaugh and the caravan. I mean, if you're a Republican and you're not excited about voting, you're legally dead. Kavanaugh was an assault on everything we hold near and dear. Why is it always our judges? This has been a nightmare for red state Trump Democrats between the Kavanaugh debacle, despicable character assassination, and a caravan trying to overrun our borders. It's been a nightmare for red state Democrats, and it's unified Republicans. Again, whether you're a Bush Republican, Trump Republican, vegetarian Republican, you were upset about what they were doing to Brett Kavanaugh. They tried to destroy this man's life, to hold open the seat so they could fill it. They do not recognize President Trump won the election, and he chose a qualified person, and it is resonating all over this country. It has united Republicans, and it's put Democrats on the defensive.
Explain on the issue of Mexico, because I know you got the attention of the Mexican government yesterday with your comments.
I did. I'm about to get it again if you'll give me 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
I appreciate the phone call. They do watch Fox News. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador from Mexico, calling me. I like what you said to me. It's important that we keep this caravan away from the United States border. We can work on fixing the triangle countries, make their lives better, and we can work together to secure both sides of the border. But you need to stop this caravan. I appreciate what you said to me, and keep working with Trump. I think he'll be a good ally.
All right, Mike DeWine, if we look at Ohio, no Republican has ever won the presidency without winning your state. It is truly a swing state. 2 times a voter for Obama, votes for Donald Trump. Even with the hostility, I would call it, of John Kasich. But is the economy, since Donald Trump's been president, better for the people of Ohio? And more specifically, how do you help it?
Well, we've moved forward, certainly moved forward under President Trump. If you go back 8 years, when my opponent, Richard Cordray, was the Attorney General and Ted Strickland was the governor, we had lost 400,000 jobs. We had double-digit unemployment. Things were going south. Today, we've regained those 400,000 jobs plus 150,000 other jobs. This past year, September to September, we gained more jobs, new jobs in the state of Ohio than we've had for any year for 21 years. So we're moving in the right direction. What we don't want to do is go back to the tax issues.
But if you got Lindsey Graham on your side
all the time,
and Bill Cunningham on your side, you're doing pretty well, because they're both great Americans. All right, we'll be watching Ohio closely 1 week from tonight. When we come back, Rush explains why you must vote in 7 days.